the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
I've had an absolutely exciting day doing what Jesus told us to do. I used to have a friend when he'd be leaving me, and he would say, "You go about your business, Michael. I'll go about his." Little dart. Were you about the work of Jesus today? Whenever you were doing whatever you were doing, did you have a conscious notion inside yourself, I'm doing this for Jesus? Not broadcasting it, but just being aware. That's what I'm going to do today. Not just come to church, but I got up this morning and I said, "Good morning, Jesus." Anyway, let me tell you what I was doing. Because some people think I just work on a Sunday. And it was wonderful. I came for morning mass, and people were there. And after morning mass, which is the tradition in our parish, only it's growing rapidly because we offer a wonderful service at All Saints. That is that all the priests come down and help when confessions are being heard, and other parishes find out about it. So they come here, and the lines are right around the walls, and they get out quickly. It was wonderful, and after that, I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to an historical moment in the history of the Diocese of Knoxville today. We're going down for an ordination of 4 priests. And by the way, one of them is going to be assigned here. His name is Father Colin Blanchford. And I'm so excited about it. He comes from a family of 7 sons and 2 daughters and a mom and a dad. And that's his background. And he'll be coming to us on July the 1st. And there's going to be no changes. I'm staying, Father Miguel's staying, Father Panchin is staying, and we have a new man. So the bishop must think that we're growing. And I can assure you we are. And then, just as I'm going, thanks be to God for my iPhone, because I put on an alarm to tell me what I'm supposed to be doing. And I looked at it and I says, "No, you have a baptism at the same time the ordination is going on." Okay, so I did my baptism, and because that's what he told us to do, baptize in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And I jumped in my car and I ran down and I said, "Now will I put on my suit, or will I and go in because I'm late, or will I put on my vestments because I might get in under the wire?" And I get out of the car and the litany of the saints is being sung, and I says, "Good, I made it." And I went in, and it was a beautiful celebration, the ordination of 4 priests, and had to rush back here because here in this sanctuary we were having 6 weddings at the same time, and it was fantastic. Father Miguel, because many of his community and our community are poor, you know, they get all locked up in our American way of what weddings are supposed to be like, and you really have to put on the big do, and it's expensive, and it's marvelous, and it's good. So what they do is they put off their weddings and sometimes just go live together and do the best that they can. And Father Miguel rounded up the community and said, "Look, put on a celebration here. Over there right now, there's a wedding reception going on with 6 brides and 6 grooms, and a great reception, and it's costing them hardly anything. And what we want to emphasize is the importance of marriage. And it's not just, obviously, I believe there is a kind of a holiness in genuine people coming together, even if they live together. And please don't misunderstand me and go tell the bishop I believe in living outside marriage. But I believe in our today's culture that somehow we really have lost the sense of the sacramentality and the holiness of marriage and its importance within the church. And this is an effort to say, no, you just don't live together and be together. You make that living together part of the life of the church, and you try to live it in such a way that it reflects the church. And it's just a tremendous thing. And I did that, and of course, as soon as that was over, I had somebody call me on the phone for this and that and the other thing, and now I'm here in the sanctuary and I'm talking to you. Okay, so, but what I want to tell you about is, in a sense, is the importance of the Feast of the Ascension, because that's what I was doing. I was living out what Jesus asks all of us to do, to live all of our day and consecrate it in such a way that it gives a call to live a way of life that Jesus came to give. I remember when I'd be coming home from America, and early on, especially in the early days, my father would insist on meeting me at the airport. I've told you this story before. I always remember it on the Feast of the Ascension. But my father would insist on welcoming me home. And when I would arrive at the airport and I would see him, because I wouldn't walk out, I'd just watch. And I would see him going from one foot to the next foot and straining and looking and watching people coming in and going out. And he would be just, I know, focused on me. And I could never, if you'll understand, I hope you'll understand this, I could never really understand why somebody would be so excited about my coming home. Okay, now I know that I'm excited about other people coming home, but people excited about me coming home, it's really hard to grasp that. And then I would come out, and my father, almost I could see him being pushed from some kind of a spirit that kind of couldn't wait to grasp me, and he would take me in this bear hug, and he would wrap me, and I would be lost in him. And I would always remember that on the Feast of the Ascension. Because remember, Jesus left home. And he went away. And he took on our way of life. Because we become enchanted with the whole business of trying to live. And it's very hard to live and keep focused on God. Because there's so much to do. So many things that demand our attention, and sometimes it's not going right, and the last thing in the world we want to be thinking about God if we want to get it done, and that's what we do. And Jesus came among us saying, this is sin. And I'm not talking about you're all bad people, but to leave God out is to enter into a relationship that was never intended for us by God. And he comes to restore it and enthrone his Father back in our hearts. And it's a long journey to do that, because we're born with original sin. We're born selfish. And we have to be. We look for food and we do all these things. But anyway, Jesus comes and he shows us the importance simply of being in a woman's womb. Just simply that. And he restores the presence of life in the womb, because he didn't come into being when he was born. He was there at conception. And he restores it. And not only that, but it's really important where we're born. I bet everybody here in the church was born in a hospital. I remember at high school one time at the Mass, and I went through, anybody born in any place not a hospital? And one kid put up his hand and he says, yes, I was born in the back of a car. And everybody laughed and pointed because they're teenagers and most of the people in the world are not born in a hospital. And Jesus was born in a stable, as though that's some kind of tragedy. And it's not at all to be profoundly grateful at the advances that we make in medicine, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic. But Jesus comes to say that every place of birth is sacred because God is present there. But it's very hard to see. And Jesus comes to teach us and restore us to the dignity that is there not because we were born in a hospital, but simply because we were born. And he restores it. And then he goes out, and in his preaching and teaching, he goes to everybody. And he's among his own people that were chosen by God to be the light shining in the darkness, that he belongs to everyone. And so that's why we had the 3 wise men come. And this is why we had Jesus go home and live in a home for 30 years, just silently, quietly, restoring it, giving it a dignity, because it's humdrum living in a home and doing the things that we do. But Jesus always did it in union with his Father, and he wanted to teach this marvelous gift. And he did. But they found him also going out not only to the good people who should be gone out to and served, but he went out to the rejected, the broken, and the worst sinners that you can possibly imagine, even to the ones that were crucifying him unfairly, with a great injustice, and he was loving them with the same love he was giving his mother at the foot of the cross. What is this? And it's the life of God. And he dies, and we know the Feast of the Resurrection. He says, look, and he has already begun to form a people like you and me that don't understand, don't really appreciate it, but he needs us, and he needed them. And then, as he was leaving and going to the Father, he said, now I want you to wait, because I'm going to send a Spirit on you that was also on me. Not to make you great or fine or happy or get you to heaven, but so that you will give witness to this way of life. And it's very hard for us to figure that we really are responsible for the preaching of the gospel. Father Michael, the bishop, the nuns, the sisters, whatever, and some of us may teach and that sort of thing. But we have a life to live. And when Jesus, when he was ascending to his Father, after his work was done, his Father runs out and says, welcome home, son. Welcome home. Well done. And then he said to him, I believe, did you bring anybody with you? And he says, yeah, I did the work you gave me to do. They're all behind. They're on the way. And the ascension is that, but he says, I am giving you the authority on earth to do what I do. To see you is to see Jesus, to live his life, to do his way. You know, on September the 19th, Matthew Kelly is coming. If you haven't bought a ticket, how many is left? About 100 tickets are left. Buy them. Buy one for your friend. This guy is an evangelizer. He stirs up people who have lost the sense of what it is that we're supposed to be doing as a Catholic people. And I was listening to I'm listening to tapes that he does, and I'm going to tell you one of the stories that's in it, and it's a great story for the Feast of the Ascension. And I hope I was able to scribble it down fast enough because I didn't have much time, but it's a fabulous story. He says, once upon a time, there was a very, very successful, and let me tell it to you, I would like you to be thinking in terms of the very businessman that was very successful as the church, okay? Once upon a time, there was a very successful businessman, and he owned a company that served millions, faithfully, served millions of customers. But lately, business had not been so good. And many of the competitors were just waiting for him to fail. Can you see how that is with the church? We've served so many millions so well, but we're not doing so well. And so the man wondered what he would do, because the problems were complex and the solutions were few and far between. And everyone wondered what would happen to this great company. And finally he announced that he was going to hold a dinner for all his employees and would unveil a plan that would save the company and return it to its former glory. And he wanted to convey to them how important each person was to the future of the success of the organization. But the morning of the dinner, he was sitting down to write his talk in his study, and he was working on a speech, and his wife came and knocked on the door, and she shoved her head in and says, "Listen, would you look after our 7-year-old son for a few hours while I run some errands?" And something inside him, because he wanted to say, "Look, I've got to get my talk done. It's so important. I'm not going to be able to do anything with this little child running around." But he said, "No, okay, fine." And about 10 minutes after the wife left, there's a knock on the door. And the 7-year-old kid comes in and he says, like we are sometimes at Mass, "I'm bored." And he knew that unless he occupied this kid, he wasn't going to have a chance at getting a speech together. So he spent a couple of hours entertaining him, but he knew he wasn't going to get to his speech. So he got a magazine and he was thumbing through it. How am I going to entertain him? And he came across this big, full-size map of the world in the center page, and he says, "Got it." And he pulled it out, and he ripped it into 1,000 pieces. And he took it into the room, and he scattered it all over the floor. And he says to his son, "Son, did you see that map of the world?" "Yes, Dad." "If you can put that back together, I'll give you $20. Well, the kid wanted $20 because he was saving for a toy for a long time, and he needed $20 to make it up. And the dad goes into the study, and he starts, and in 5 minutes, there's a knock on the door. And the kid is standing there at the door with the picture of the map of the world. His dad says, "How did you do that?" And he says, "Well, I didn't know what the map of the world looked like, and so as I was picking up the pieces, I saw a picture of a man. And so I got a large piece of paper, and I began to build the man on the paper. And then I put another piece of paper on the top of it, and I held them close together, and I turned it over, and there was the map of the world." Because you see, he said, I didn't know how to put back the world, but I knew that if I got the man right, I'd get the world right. And in the second reading of today's Mass, Paul is writing to the church in Philippi, and he said, "There's something that I really, really wish for you, and it will really make my joy complete. I want you to know the destiny to which you were called." And most of us don't. And we have to get the man right. And the man we have to get right is Jesus. Not some generic Jesus that, oh yeah, he's lovely and he's good. But he came to teach us a very specific way of life, which will be the foundation of happiness and joy. And he says, this is the way. This is the way. And it's good news. And he lived it himself and completed it with his words on the cross saying, "It is finished. I have completed the work you gave me to do," he said at the Last Supper. And then he said, "I need you to go out and tell the good news. I want you to be witnesses of the vocation to which you have been called." Matthew Kelly, in his talks, says it's not a big thing. All that we need to ask ourselves each day is not, oh God, I really got to get rid of that bad habit, but what can I do today One small thing, maybe for 1 minute, that will make me be a better person than I am right now. Just for 1 minute. It's not the whole day. It's not staying on your knees. But it's a responsibility to move back into the dignity of what we're called. Jesus is the head gone before us. We are the body here on the earth. Let us pray for that spirit to be regenerated in us so that we will come to know the hope to which we have been called.